Do you have an expired cake for my daughter? That's how it started. A quiet voice, almost swallowed by the hum of refrigerators and the beep of barcode scanners, floated across the bakery aisle of a mid-range supermarket. On a Tuesday evening, at exactly the time when people just wanted to get home, eat, and forget their day. The woman asking the question stood at the bakery counter, fingers nervously twisting the strap of her faded bag. Her clothes were clean but worn, shoes scuffed, hair pulled back into a simple bun. She looked like someone who was always just a little bit tired. Behind her, 3 other customers waited in line. One of them was a man in a navy blazer, a silver watch glinting on his wrist, his shoes polished, his hair professionally styled. He checked his phone, frowned at the time, and sighed. This was Adrian Wells. Multimillionaire. Real estate developer. Man who thought he had seen absolutely everything. And he heard every word. The bakery worker, a young woman with a name tag that read, Emma, blinked. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" Emma asked gently. The woman swallowed hard, her cheeks reddening. I was just wondering," she started, voice trembling, "if you, maybe have an expired cake. Or one that's about to expire. The ones you throw away. I don't mind. It's for my daughter. It's her birthday." You could feel the air shift. The customer behind Adrian stopped scrolling on his phone. A kid in a school uniform, holding a small tray of cupcakes, turned to stare. Emma froze with a plastic knife in her hand. Even Adrian's thumb stopped over his screen. He lifted his eyes. He wasn't used to hearing words like that. He wasn't used to hearing begging. Especially not for something as small, as ordinary, as a birthday cake. "An expired cake," Emma repeated slowly, as if she needed to be sure she'd heard correctly. "Yes," the woman nodded quickly, misunderstanding Emma's confusion as resistance. "I know you have to throw them out, and I know they're not good for sale. But if you're going to trash them anyway, maybe I could take one. Just one. For my little girl." Her hand trembled as she reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She unfolded it like it was precious. On it was a crayon drawing of a cake with 3 uneven layers and candles sticking out in wild directions. On top, in shaky purple letters, was written, "Happy birthday, Mama loves you, Sophia, 7. Except the 7 was scribbled over with an 8. "She drew this," the woman said softly. "Her name is Sophia. She keeps saying, 'Mama, this year will be different, right? This year I'll get a cake like the others in my class.'" Her lips pressed together to steady herself. "I thought maybe if you had one nobody wanted." Behind her, Adrian rolled his eyes. Under his breath, just loud enough for the man behind him to catch, he muttered, "You've got to be kidding me." The man behind him gave a small, awkward chuckle. Nobody in that moment knew who Adrian was. Nobody knew his face from magazine covers, or the profiles praising his rags to riches story, or the business articles that called him a testament to hard work and hustle. To them, he was just another impatient customer with an expensive watch and a fancy suit, waiting to pick up a custom cake. What nobody in that aisle knew was that this moment, this quiet, humiliating question about expired cake, was about to crack open everything Adrian believed about himself. And the way he responded would follow him a lot further than the store exit. If you're still watching at this point, you probably already feel something tugging at you. Maybe you've seen a moment like this in real life. Maybe you've been the person at the counter, or the one pretending not to hear. Either way, let's rewind. Because to understand why that question hit so hard, we need to know who these people were before that Tuesday evening. Adrian Wells was, in many ways, exactly what people imagine when they hear the word millionaire. He was 42, driven, and meticulously organized. He owned a sizable real estate development firm that built everything from fancy condos to shopping centers. He lived in a glass and steel penthouse with a view of the river, drove a sleek electric car, and had a personal trainer who texted him when he missed a gym session. People saw him as sharp, confident, successful. And he was. But there was something else people didn't see. Underneath the tailored suits and the confident tone was a boy who had stood in grocery lines with sweaty palms, watching his mother count coins she knew weren't enough. He remembered the humiliation of putting things back. He remembered the way the cashier's eyes softened, and how that softness had burned him almost as much as the embarrassment. He remembered the way his mother once asked the store manager if they ever had food that they were going to throw away, and whether they could maybe have some for free. He remembered the way the manager's polite smile froze in place, like someone had slapped him. He remembered vowing, at 13, that he would never beg again. And that he would never be the one on that side of the counter ever in his life. So he worked. He worked through high school, through college, through sleepless nights. He had no time for pity, his or anyone else's. The story he told himself was simple. I climbed out. Anyone can. If you're still poor, you didn't work hard enough. It wasn't kind. It wasn't fair. But it was the story that made his success feel earned, deserved, justified. Now, on the other side of that bakery counter, was someone who threatened that story just by existing. The woman asking for the expired cake. Her name was Rosa Alvarez. Rosa was 34, and if you saw her on the bus, you might not look twice. She worked 2 jobs, cleaning offices in the early mornings and serving food in a school cafeteria during the day. She rented a small, damp apartment on the edge of the city, where the walls were thin and the neighbors loud. Her husband, Javier, had walked out when their daughter was 5, leaving behind a note and a pile of unpaid bills. Since then, Rosa had been both mother and father, nurse and teacher, security and comfort. Her daughter, Sophia, had big brown eyes, messy curls, and a smile that could knock the wind out of you. She loved drawing and asking questions and telling long stories about imaginary princesses who became queens by being kind, not by marrying kings. Sophia's birthdays, though, had never been like the ones she saw at school. There were no balloon arches, no bouncing castles, no large chocolate cakes with sparkling candles. There was usually a small homemade pastry if Rosa could manage it, or some cookies arranged in a circle with a candle stuck in the middle. They made it special with songs, stories, and hugs, but Sophia was 8 now. Old enough to see what other kids had. This year, she'd said, "Mama, I don't need a party. I just want a real cake. Like the ones in the window. With my name on it. Just once." Rosa had smiled and said, "We'll see, mi cielo. We'll see what Mama can do." But Rosa's paycheck had shrunk. Her hours at the cafeteria had been cut. The office she cleaned had reduced their contract. Rent didn't shrink. Light bills didn't shrink. Her budget was a tightrope, and she'd already slipped twice that month. By the time Sophia's birthday week rolled around, Rosa had done the math over and over again. There was no money for a cake. Not even one of the smallest ones. And then, one day, while wiping down tables in the school cafeteria, she overheard 2 other staff members talking. "Yeah, I used to work in a supermarket bakery," one woman said. "At the end of the day, they just toss whatever is a day old." "Seriously," her friend replied. "Can't they donate them?" "Nah, policy. Something about liability. They'd rather throw them out." The conversation was meant to be casual, almost gossipy, but Rosa heard it like a door creaking open. They threw away cakes. Cakes nobody bought. Cakes that were just sitting there. The idea felt like a sin and a miracle at the same time. She wrestled with that thought for days. The idea of asking hurt. It scraped against her pride, against the part of her that wanted to shield Sophia from ever seeing her this desperate. But the picture of Sophia's hopeful face, and the drawing on the fridge of a 3-layer cake with wild candles, weighed heavier. Finally, on that Tuesday evening, after finishing her cafeteria shift, she went to the supermarket. She held her breath the entire bus ride there. And that's how she ended up at the bakery counter, asking for an expired cake. Back in the supermarket, Emma stared at Rosa, feeling the weight of the moment settle on her shoulders. "I'm really sorry," Emma began, fumbling for corporate-approved language. "We're not actually allowed to give out expired food. It's policy. Even if—" "I understand," Rosa cut in quickly, nodding too fast. I understand, of course. It's just that. I thought maybe one of the cakes that's about to expire? The ones that are marked down. She looked over at the glass case where the untouched cakes sat, pretty and perfect, with prices that stabbed her in the chest. Emma followed her gaze, chewed her lip, and glanced around, as if hoping a manager would appear and make the decision for her. Behind them, Adrian exhaled sharply. This is ridiculous, he muttered, a little louder now. Some of us have places to be. Rosa flinched. Emma's shoulders stiffened, but she forced a professional smile. There is one cake that's discounted, Emma said carefully. It expires tonight, and it's already half off. I can go check the price if you'd like. Rosa's eyes lit up for a second. Yes, please, she said. If it's not too much trouble. Emma hurried to the back, disappearing into the small refrigerated room. Adrian stepped forward, eyes flickering toward Rosa for the first time. He took her in fully now, the worn shoes, the frayed seams, the tense shoulders, the way she held herself small, like someone who had learned to take up as little space as possible. An expired cake, he said under his breath, shaking his head. Rosa, staring down at her hands, whispered, I'm sorry, I'm slowing everyone down. It's just for my daughter. She's turning 8 today, and I. No one asked for your life story, Adrian cut in. Rosa's mouth closed like a door slammed shut. The man behind Adrian shifted uncomfortably. Come on, man, he murmured, but it was too soft and too late. Emma came back out with a small, round cake, vanilla with simple white frosting and a border of pink. A single plastic tag stuck out of the side. So, she said, glancing at the screen. With the discount, it's, 12.99. Rosa's face fell. She wrestled with numbers in her head so visibly you could almost see them floating in front of her. Can you, maybe, she swallowed. Is there another discount? Since it expires tonight? Emma's throat tightened. I'm really sorry. That's already the markdown price. If I change it more, I'll get in trouble. I wish I could. It's fine, Adrian snapped. Can you just ring up my order? I've already paid online, I just need to pick up my cake. Emma looked at him, then back at Rosa, torn. Rosa forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. No, he's right, she whispered. You should help the gentleman first. His time is more important than mine. Adrian didn't miss the way her voice cracked on the word, important. But he pushed the flicker of guilt down. I ordered under Wells, he said briskly. Adrian Wells. Emma typed the name in, and her eyes widened. Oh. Yes, Mr. Wells, your cake is ready. Just a second. She rushed to the back, leaving Rosa and Adrian standing side by side in heavy silence. Rosa took one small step to the side, creating more space between them, clutching the crumpled drawing in her hand. Adrian glanced down at it. He saw the crude cake drawing, the uneven candles, the shaky 8. His jaw tightened. You know those moments where you feel your heart trying to go one way and your pride yanking it in the opposite direction? That was Adrian in that second. He thought. I could just pay for the cake. It's nothing. I spend more than that on a single drink at dinner. But right on top of that thought was another one. If you start giving handouts, where does it stop? You'll be responsible for every sob story that walks past you. And how do you know she's not lying? People always have a story. He remembered his mother begging for leftovers when he was a kid. He remembered the look on the manager's face, the pity, the discomfort. He had promised never to be that person. So instead of kindness, out came something else. This is a supermarket, not a charity, he said quietly, eyes fixed ahead. If you can't afford a cake, maybe you should. I don't know. Focus on rent or something. The words were cold. Too cold even for him. Rosa's cheeks flamed. I do pay my rent, she said stiffly, dignity trembling on the edge of breaking. I work 2 jobs. I'm just running out of options. Adrian's lips pressed into a thin line. Everyone's got options, he replied. Some of us just don't wait around for someone to hand us leftovers. If you've ever heard something that feels like a slap in a room that's supposed to be neutral, like a store, or a bus, or a classroom, you know how quickly the atmosphere becomes thick with secondhand shame. The teenage boy with the cupcakes looked down at his shoes. The man behind Adrian shifted his shopping basket from one hand to another, suddenly fascinated by the floor tiles. Rosa swallowed whatever she wanted to say. You could see it in her eyes, that fight between anger and the exhausting knowledge that arguing with someone who has decided you're beneath them is rarely worth it. Emma reappeared, carrying a large, elaborate cake with gold lettering and delicate sugar flowers. Happy 20th anniversary, Wells Development, it read. The irony would only fully register later. Here you go, Mr. Wells, Emma said, forcing a smile. It looks perfect. It better be, Adrian replied, inspecting it with the practiced eye of someone who's used to getting exactly what he pays for. I'm taking this to an event. Emma nodded and quickly completed the pickup process. As she did, her eyes flicked back to Rosa, whose shoulders had started to fold inward like someone trying to disappear. I'm really sorry, Emma said softly to her. About the cake. I wish I could. It's okay, Rosa cut her off, lifting her chin in a shaky attempt at bravery. Thank you for checking. She glanced at the discounted cake one more time, the price tag like a glass wall between her and her daughter's wish. Then she turned and walked away. The drawing slipped from her fingers and fluttered to the bakery floor. Nobody moved at first. Then Adrian stepped forward, cake box in hand, and his eyes landed on the drawing at his feet. He hesitated. Then, with a muttered, "You dropped something," he bent down, picked it up, and called out. Hey, Rosa turned halfway, eyes wary. You dropped this, he said, holding the drawing out. For a second, their fingers brushed as she took it from him. Her eyes met his. There was no dramatic spark, no sudden connection. Just a flicker of something raw, hurt, humiliation, tiredness. Thank you, she whispered. Then she walked away. Adrian watched her go, his jaw tense, then shook it off and headed for the exit. He told himself it was nothing. Just another stranger with another sad story. But as you're about to see, the story wasn't done with him. Not even close. If you've ever seen someone be talked down to in public like that, what did you do? Did you step in? Did you stay quiet? Tell me in the comments if you've ever been in a situation like that, and what you wish you had done. That night, Adrian's company was hosting an anniversary dinner at a fancy restaurant. The cake he picked up wasn't for a kid's birthday. It was for a room full of investors, partners, and executives, people clinking glasses over lamb chops and talking about profit margins. The restaurant's private dining room glowed with soft golden lights. Glasses caught the reflections like tiny suns. Waiters moved like choreographed dancers. At the center of the room, the cake sat on a decorated table, waiting for its moment. The cake was perfect. The presentation was perfect. The speeches were rehearsed and perfectly flattering. So why, as Adrian stood there listening to his own success story being repeated back to him in 3 different toasts, did he keep hearing one sentence on loop in his head? Do you have an expired cake for my daughter? He heard it over and over, as if someone had hit repeat. He saw again the way Rosa's face had fallen at the price. The way her shoulders hunched when he snapped at her. The way she clutched that drawing like armor. He tried to shake it off. He told himself. She's an adult. Life is hard. I didn't owe her anything. People ask for crazy things all the time. That's not my problem. But every time he tried to mentally walk away from it, something tugged him back. It might have been the tiny flicker of recognition of his younger self in worn shoes, watching his mother at a checkout. It might have been the look in Rosa's eyes when she said, "I'm just running out of options." Or it might have been the quiet comment he overheard from one of his employees when they thought he was out of earshot. "Did you see that woman by the bakery?" the employee whispered to his date. "The one with the drawing? Man, that was hard to watch." "Yeah," the date replied. And that guy with the suit, what he said. That was unnecessary. Adrian's fork paused halfway to his mouth. He set it down. Everything okay, Adrian? His CFO, Liam, asked. Fine, Adrian said shortly. Just thinking. But he wasn't thinking about quarterly growth or expansion into new territories. He was thinking about a little girl somewhere in the city who might be blowing out an imaginary candle, because her mother couldn't afford a cake, and because he, with all his resources, had chosen to say something cruel instead of something kind. Meanwhile, miles away, in a cramped apartment that smelled faintly of bleach and fried onions, Sophia sat at a small table with a chipped surface. The birthday cake was a circle of store-brand biscuits arranged on a plate, with a single pink candle stuck off-center in a blob of peanut butter. Rosa smiled as brightly as she could manage. Happy birthday to you, she sang, her voice wobbling only once. Happy birthday to you. Sophia's eyes shone in the candlelight. When the song ended, she scrunched up her face, made a wish, and blew out the candle. What did you wish for? Rosa asked. Sophia grinned. I can't tell you, Mama, or it won't come true. Oh, right, Rosa laughed softly. You're absolutely right. Sophia took a bite of a biscuit, crumbs falling onto the table. It's good, she said decisively. This is the best birthday ever because we're together. Rosa's throat tightened. Best birthday ever, hey, she echoed, smoothing Sophia's curls. Yeah, Sophia nodded. And next year, maybe we can get a real cake from the store. But it's okay if we can't. Maybe we can draw it again. Drawing is free, right? Rosa's eyes filled, but she forced them not to spill. Drawing is always free, she whispered. And as long as I'm your mama, you'll never run out of love. Even if we run out of cake. Sophia leaned against her, perfectly content. Rosa had considered telling her about the supermarket, about the almost cake, about the cashier who tried to help, about the man who made everything feel worse. But in that moment, watching her daughter lick peanut butter off her fingers and hum the birthday song again just because she liked the tune, Rosa decided that Sophia didn't need that story. Not tonight. Tonight, she just needed to feel loved. Back at the restaurant, the staff rolled out the company cake to applause. Cameras flashed. Phones came out. Someone started chanting, "Speech! Speech!" Come on, Adrian, Liam said, clapping him on the back. Say a few words. You love this part. Tonight, he really didn't. But he stood up anyway. Because that's what successful people do, right? They stand up, smile, and say the right things. He took the microphone, cleared his throat, and looked out at the faces around him. 20 years ago, he began, I started Wells Development with nothing but a vision and a lot of stubbornness. He gave the usual lines, about hard work, sacrifice, late nights. People nodded in all the right places, laughed at the practiced jokes. But as he spoke, the words tasted hollow. He saw images in his mind that didn't match his speech, not blueprints, not skyscrapers, but a drawing of a crooked cake with the number 8 on it, clutched in shaking hands. Without fully meaning to, he said something he hadn't planned. I came from a place where we didn't always know if there would be food on the table, he admitted. I remember watching my mother ask for things other people threw away. I remember the looks people gave her, like she was less than them. The room quieted, sensing a shift. I told myself I'd never be in that position again, he continued. And that's part of what pushed me. But sometimes when you climb high enough, you forget what it felt like to be the one at the counter, asking for something small, and being made to feel like you were asking for the moon. He paused, surprising even himself. Liam gave him a careful look. This was not in the script. I don't want us to be the kind of company, or the kind of people, who forgets, Adrian finished more quickly than he intended. So here's to the next 20 years, and to remembering where we came from. People clapped, impressed by the authenticity. They thought it was just a well-timed, emotionally resonant speech. But Adrian knew better. He knew he was talking to himself. You might be thinking right now. Okay, he felt bad. Lots of people feel bad and then do nothing. What actually changed him? This is where the world being obsessed with smartphones and social media comes in. Because while Adrian had walked away from the bakery that evening, someone else had not walked away from the moment altogether. Remember the teenage boy with the tray of cupcakes? His name was Ethan. He had been lingering a little farther down the aisle, pretending not to stare, but his phone had been in his hand the whole time. And when Adrian's cold comment had cut through the air, Ethan had, almost without thinking, hit record. He captured Rosa asking about expired cake. Her quiet explanation about her daughter's birthday. Adrian's dismissive, "This is a supermarket, not a charity." And Rosa's flushed, humiliated silence. Later that night, angry on her behalf, Ethan uploaded the clip to a popular short-form video app. He captioned it, "Rich guy humiliates mom just trying to get a cake for her kid." This is the world we live in. He didn't know who Adrian was. To him, Adrian was just rich guy in a blazer with no heart. You know how this goes. The algorithm did its thing. By morning, the video had hundreds of thousands of views. By lunchtime, it had millions. People stitched it, duetted it, added their own commentary. I hope the daughter never sees this. This broke my heart. Why is it always the people who could help the most that choose to hurt instead? If you've ever been broke, you know how much courage it takes to ask that question. Somebody paused the video at just the right angle where Adrian's face was clear, then ran it through an image search. It didn't take long. "Guys," one commenter wrote, "I think this is Adrian Wells. The real estate dude. Check this." Side-by-side pictures appeared, a screenshot from the bakery video next to a professional headshot from a business magazine. Same jawline. Same posture. Same watch. The internet did the rest. By 3 p.m., #expired cake guy and #do better Adrian were trending. People dug up his company website, his charity donations, his motivational talks about remembering your roots. The irony burned. The clip reached his board, his employees, his partners. And eventually, inevitably, it reached him. Adrian, Leah, his assistant, said, standing stiffly in his office doorway, pale with stress. "You need to see this." He looked up from his computer, distracted. "Can it wait?" "I've got." "No," she said tightly. "It really can't." She placed her phone on his desk and hit play. Adrian watched himself on screen, eyes cool, voice sharp, dismissing Rosa like she was an inconvenience instead of a human being. He saw her flinch on loop. He saw the comments scrolling underneath. He saw himself the way strangers saw him. It wasn't pretty. For a moment, he just stared at the screen, numb. Then his stomach dropped. "Turn it off," he said quietly. Leah did. "What's the view count?" he asked. 8 million, she replied. "And climbing. News outlets are starting to pick it up. The PR team has called 3 times. People are tagging the company account and your personal page." He leaned back, pressing his hands over his face. Of all the things he could control, markets, projects, negotiations, this was slipping out of his hands faster than sand through clenched fists. "We need a statement," Leah said carefully. "Something. Or at least, we need to talk to the PR firm." Adrian dropped his hands, eyes dark. "What do they want me to say?" he snapped. "That it's taken out of context? That I was having a bad day? That I, don't actually hate poor people?" Leah hesitated. "I don't know what they'll suggest," she admitted. "But right now, everyone thinks you're a heartless jerk." She didn't say the harsher word she was clearly thinking. "And are they wrong?" Adrian shot back, then froze at his own question. Because deep down, where he didn't like to look too often, he knew the answer. He remembered his mother at the counter. He remembered swearing he'd never be in that position again. He had climbed. He had escaped. But somewhere along the way, he realized, he'd started looking at people who were still stuck, not with empathy, but with contempt. The same contempt he'd seen in other people's eyes when they looked at his family. He had become the thing he hated. For a long moment, his office was silent except for the faint hum of the city outside. Then he said something that surprised both of them. "Find her," he told Leah. She blinked. "Find who?" "The woman in the video," he replied. "The one with the drawing." "Find her." "I don't care how." "Call the store. Check with whoever posted the video. Trace whatever you have to trace. Just find her." Leah stared. "Adrian, this is a PR disaster," she said carefully. "If you're thinking of some staged apology." "I'm not thinking about PR right now," he cut in. "I'm thinking about something I should have done yesterday. Before any cameras." He stood up, feeling restless. "We'll deal with the PR. But first, I need to talk to her." "And say what?" Leah asked, not unkindly. He swallowed. "I don't know yet," he admitted. "But if I stay in this office and pretend this is just about damage control, then everyone online is right about me. If you're still watching, I want you to think about something. Have you ever realized you were the villain in someone else's story? Not because you meant to be, but because of what you said, or didn't say. It's a rough feeling. It's also where real change starts. If you believe people should be held accountable when they mess up, especially those with power, hit that like button. Not for me, but for the people like Rosa who rarely get heard." Finding Rosa turned out to be both easier and harder than expected. The supermarket manager, once contacted by Adrian's team, said, "Oh, the woman about the cake? Yeah, I remember. One of the cashiers kept her receipt for a while, said she wanted to ask if there was some fund that could help people like her." That cashier, of course, was Emma. Emma still had the memory of Rosa's face burned into her mind. She also had seen the video online, and had recognized Adrian. "I knew it," she told the manager. "I knew something was off about the way he talked to her." When Leah called and said she was from Adrian's office, asking for help contacting Rosa, Emma's first reaction was suspicion. "Is he going to sue her or something?" she demanded. "Because if you hurt her more, I swear." "No," Leah said quickly. "He wants to apologize. In person. And make things right, if he can." Emma didn't fully trust that. But she did remember Rosa leaving a simple, handwritten flyer on the community board near the store entrance one day. "Cleaning services, homes or offices. Call Rosa." She remembered the phone number. Within hours, Leah had it. She called. Rosa answered on the third ring, sounding breathless. "Hello? Hello, is this Rosa Alvarez?" Leah asked gently. "Yes," Rosa replied cautiously. "Who's calling?" "My name is Leah," she said. I'm calling from the office of Adrian Wells." There was a pause. Rosa's grip tightened around the cheap phone. "I don't know who that is," she lied automatically. "If this is about cleaning, He was the man at the supermarket yesterday," Leah said quietly. "The one in the bakery aisle." Silence. "I'm so sorry for what happened," Leah continued. "He asked me to find you. He wants to talk to you. To apologize. In person." Rosa laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Of course he does," she muttered. "Now that the whole world saw him." "I understand why you think that," Leah said. "And yes, the video is part of it. But I saw his face when he watched it. He looked ashamed, Rosa. And I've been working with him for 9 years. I've never seen him like that." Rosa didn't respond at first. She didn't owe him anything. She owed herself and her daughter protection, privacy, dignity. "I don't want to be on camera," she said finally. "I don't want reporters. I don't want people knowing where I live because they saw me online." "You won't be," Leah said firmly. "No cameras. No media. Just a conversation. Wherever you feel safe. Public place, if you want." Rosa closed her eyes. In the other room, she could hear Sophia humming to herself as she drew. "I don't have time for rich men to clear their conscience," Rosa said softly. "I've got work. I've got my daughter. I've got bills." "I know," Leah replied. "And he knows he doesn't deserve your time. But he's asking for it anyway. And he also wants to bring something. For Sophia. For her birthday." Rosa's heart twisted. "You saw the video," she said. "You saw everything." "Yes," Leah replied quietly. "Then you know," Rosa said, voice low. "My daughter still hasn't asked me why there was no cake. She just said it was the best birthday ever because we were together. She doesn't know how I begged in that store. She doesn't know what that man said. She doesn't know it was recorded. I'd like to keep it that way." Leah's throat tightened. "I understand," she said. Rosa sighed. "But I can agree to meet," she added reluctantly. "Not for him. For me. To look him in the eye and know if he's sorry or just scared of losing money." "Thank you," Leah breathed. "Where would you like to meet?" Rosa thought. "Somewhere simple," she said. "Public. The park near the Riverfield bus stop. Tomorrow at 5. I'll bring my daughter. People with real power don't usually misbehave in front of kids." There was a faint, bitter humor in her tone. Leah nodded, even though Rosa couldn't see it. "I'll tell him," she said. "And Rosa?" "Yes. Whatever happens, you don't owe him forgiveness. That's yours to decide." Rosa hung up without answering. The next day, the weather was mild, the kind of day that made the city feel a little softer. Rosa and Sophia arrived at the park early. Sophia ran toward the slide, her laughter ringing across the playground. Rosa sat on a bench, hands clasped tightly in her lap, eyes scanning every well-dressed man who walked by. She wondered what she would say. She wondered if she would freeze up. She wondered if she would cry. 15 minutes later, Adrian appeared at the edge of the park, walking more slowly than usual. He looked smaller somehow, without the buffer of his office and his title. Just a man in a button-down shirt and slacks, holding something in his hands. Rosa saw him, stiffened, and almost stood up to leave. But then she saw what he was carrying. A cake. A real cake. Not enormous, not extravagant, but simple and beautiful. White frosting, a ring of strawberries on top, and in the center, in neat purple letters. "Happy birthday, Sophia, 8. Her throat closed. Adrian approached cautiously, like a student who'd been called into the principal's office. "Rosa," he said quietly. She nodded once, her expression guarded. "Mr. Wells." He set the cake box gently on the bench between them, as if placing an offering at an altar. "For the record," he said, "I know this doesn't fix anything. It's not payment. Or pity. It's just something I should have done yesterday, when it would have mattered most." Rosa stared at the box, then at him. "You're right," she said. "It doesn't fix anything. But my daughter will still be happy." Adrian followed her gaze to the playground, where Sophia was hanging upside down from the monkey bars, laughing with 2 other kids. "She doesn't know?" he asked. "About the video?" Rosa replied. "No. She just knows Mama came home tired and we had biscuits for cake. I intend to keep it that way." Adrian nodded. "Good," he said. "She doesn't need to carry that." They stood in silence for a moment, watching Sophia play. "Why did you say it?" Rosa asked suddenly, eyes still on her daughter. "Say what?" Adrian stalled, though he knew exactly what. "That I should focus on rent," Rosa said. "That this was a supermarket, not a charity." "Why did you say it like that? You don't know me. You don't know what I do to keep a roof over our heads. So why did you treat me like some leech?" Her voice trembled with contained rage. Adrian took a breath. "Because I'm a coward," he said frankly. Rosa startled, turning to look at him. I tell myself I worked hard for everything I have, he went on. And I did work hard. But somewhere along the line, I decided that meant anyone who was struggling must not be working hard. Because the alternative, he swallowed. The alternative would be facing the fact that the system is unfair. That luck and timing and privilege play a role. That some people do everything right and still end up at the bakery counter asking for expired cake. Rosa's jaw clenched. So instead of feeling something uncomfortable, Adrian continued, I built a story that made me feel better. One where I was the hero and people like you were just not trying hard enough. Yesterday, that story came out of my mouth as cruelty. And I saw your face, and I knew I had crossed a line. But I walked away anyway. That's the part that keeps me up at night. Rosa blinked. That's more honest than I expected, she admitted. I owe you honesty, he said simply. At the very least. He paused. And, for what it's worth, I grew up closer to where you are than where I am now. I watched my mother ask for leftovers once. I remember how people looked at her. I decided I would never be that desperate. I climbed. I thought that meant I was safe from that kind of humiliation. I never realized I had turned into the person who humiliated her. Rosa stared at him. You were poor, she asked, skeptical. Yes, he replied. I don't talk about it much now, except in sanitized versions for business talks. It makes for a good inspirational story. But it's messier than I make it sound on stage. She studied his face. Then you should have been the first person to understand, she said quietly. You're right, he admitted. Which means my failure was even bigger. They watched Sophia for another few seconds. So what now? Rosa asked. You bring a cake, you say sorry, I say, it's fine. You go back to your life and I go back to mine. The internet forgives you and moves on while my rent is still due. There was no malice in her tone, just tired realism. No, Adrian said slowly. At least, I hope not. I'm not going to pretend I can solve your life in one conversation. That would be insulting. But I can ask what you actually need. Not what looks good on camera. What you need. He turned to face her more fully. What do you need, Rosa? He asked. Right now. This month. This year. She laughed bitterly. What do I need? She echoed. What I need is for the electricity company to stop sending me red envelopes. For my daughter to be able to go on a school trip without me having to choose between that and groceries. For one job that pays enough to not need two others. Adrian nodded. Okay, he said. I can't fix the world. But I can do something about part of that, if you'll let me. She narrowed her eyes. What exactly are you suggesting? She asked. I own office buildings, he said. And those offices need cleaning. I also know how much we currently pay the cleaning service we contract. It's not enough. I looked after I saw the video. I never noticed before, because I didn't want to. I can offer you a job. Directly with my company. Better pay. Benefits. Regular hours, not split into two miserable shifts. It won't make you rich. But it might mean your daughter doesn't have to wish on imaginary candles for cake. Rosa stared at him as if trying to see the catch. And why me? She asked. Because you're already doing this work, he replied. Because you're clearly responsible, you show up, you care about your kid, you fight for small things like cake in ways that most people would be too afraid or too proud to. And, because I owe you more than an apology. What about all the other Rosas out there? She challenged. Are you going to hire them all? No, he said quietly. I can't. And that's the part that will haunt me. But I can start with one. And then I can look at my company from top to bottom and see where else we're benefiting from underpaying people like you. And I can change that. It's not enough. But it's not nothing. She let out a slow breath. And what do you want in return? She asked. My forgiveness? A video you can post where we hug and the world says, oh, he learned. He shook his head. "I'd like your forgiveness," he said. "But I don't expect it. And I definitely don't want to turn your pain into a PR stunt. No cameras. No posts. If this story ever gets told, it won't be by me. Tough luck for him, huh? Because here we are, telling it." Rosa watched him for a long time, weighing his words. Finally, she said, "I will not be your charity project. If I take that job, it won't be because you feel guilty. It'll be because I am qualified and I earn it." "Agreed," Adrian replied. "You'd be hired because you can do the work. The guilt is mine to deal with separately." They both glanced at the cake box. "Can we at least give your daughter a proper birthday moment, even if it's a day late?" he asked. Rosa hesitated. Then she called out, "Sophia! Ven aquí, mi amor." Sophia ran over, cheeks flushed, hair wild. "Is that for me?" she gasped, eyes widening at the cake box. Rosa looked at Adrian. "Yes," she said softly. "It's your birthday cake." "From who?" Sophia asked, eyes sparkling. Rosa considered several answers. Then she said, "From a man who made a mistake, and is trying to fix it." Sophia looked up at Adrian. "Did you forget my birthday?" she asked with the blunt honesty of children. "Sort of," Adrian said, kneeling to her height. "I didn't know it was your birthday. But I knew your mama wanted you to have a cake. And I didn't help when I could have. I am very, very sorry for that." Sophia tilted her head. "Did you say sorry to my mama?" she asked. "Yes," he replied. "And I'll keep saying it for as long as it takes." Sophia considered this, then nodded solemnly. "Okay," she said. "Then you can have a piece of my cake. But only a little one. I'm sharing with my friends." Rosa laughed, surprised. "You're very generous," Adrian said, smiling genuinely for the first time in days. They sat on the bench and opened the box. Right there, in the middle of an ordinary park, surrounded by pigeons and the distant sound of traffic, they lit a candle and sang, "Happy Birthday," to an 8-year-old girl whose name was now written in purple frosting. Sophia closed her eyes, made a wish, and blew out the candle. She didn't tell them what she wished for. But later, Rosa would tell Adrian that Sophia had whispered in bed that night. "I wish that you and that man would be friends, Mama. Because then maybe you wouldn't be so sad. If you're still here, drop a cake in the comments so I know you made it to the cake part." Now, you might think that's the end of the story. Cake delivered, apology made, job offered. Roll credits. But real life doesn't wrap up that neatly. There were still consequences. There were still choices. And not just for Adrian and Rosa, but for everyone watching. Despite Adrian's insistence on handling things privately, the world didn't stop watching him. The video was still circulating. Think pieces were being written. People were calling for boycotts of his company. "Is this who you want to trust with your neighborhood?" one viral post asked, overlaying the video with images of his gleaming developments. His PR team was adamant. "We have to release a statement," they said. "We have to show you're learning, that you've listened, that you're not the man in that video anymore." For once, Adrian told them, "I think you should all slow down." He thought about something Rosa had said in the park, that she didn't want to be used to clear his conscience. He realized that an apology only mattered if it was backed up with action. So instead of a polished, scripted video with soft music and just the right lighting, he did something different. He called a company-wide meeting. No cameras. No reporters. Just his employees. The people who cleaned the floors, answered the phones, filed the paperwork, negotiated the deals, built the buildings. They gathered in the atrium of his main office, a space with high ceilings and too much glass, making everybody feel exposed. Adrian stood on the staircase landing and looked down at them. Some looked curious. Others looked wary. A few looked angry. "I know you've seen the video," he started, "no warm-up. I know you've read the comments. I know some of you are embarrassed to work here right now. Some of you might be wondering if what people are saying about me is true. He took a breath. I can tell you it was a bad day, he said. I can tell you I was tired, stressed, frustrated. But the truth is, those would all be excuses. And none of them justify the way I spoke to that woman. He paused. I was cruel, he said plainly. I used my position in that moment not to help, but to push someone down. And I did it in a way that revealed something rotten in how I've been thinking for years. That's not easy to admit. But it's true. The atrium was very quiet. I've spent a long time telling a story about myself, he went on. Self-made. Pulled himself up by his bootstraps. But the older I get, the more I realize that story leaves a lot of people out. People who work just as hard as I did, sometimes harder, and never get the same opportunities. People like the woman in that bakery. People like some of you. A murmur rippled through the crowd. I've underpaid some of you, he said bluntly. I've outsourced some of the hardest jobs in this company to contractors so I didn't have to look you in the eye when you cleaned my floors. I let myself believe that if I wasn't the one writing your paycheck, I wasn't responsible for how low it was. He searched the faces watching him, faces of receptionists, janitors, junior assistants, security guards. I was wrong, he said. And I'm going to fix what I can. It won't be enough. I know that. But it's a start. He announced new wage policies, ending contracts with agencies that underpaid workers and bringing cleaning and maintenance staff in-house with better salaries and benefits. He announced funding for a program specifically designed to support employees facing financial hardship, no questions asked, only a simple, private application process. He announced that he would be stepping away from the spotlight for a while to focus on actually listening, to staff, to community members, to people who had been on the other side of the counter. He did not mention Rosa by name. He did not show the cake or the park meeting or the offer he'd made. Those, he decided, belonged to them, not to his redemption narrative. When he finished, the room didn't erupt into applause. There was some clapping, yes, but there was also silence. People processing. People deciding for themselves if they believed him. Accountability doesn't always feel triumphant. Sometimes it just feels heavy. But that heaviness can be the weight that keeps you grounded. Rosa took a few days before responding to Adrian's job offer. She talked it over with her neighbor, Marisol, who watched Sophia sometimes. She thought about the stability it could bring. Regular hours. A real paycheck. Benefits. Maybe a little breathing room. She also thought about pride. Was taking this job letting him fix things too easily? Was she selling her story for a salary? In the end, she decided this. If I can give my daughter a better life, and the price is swallowing my pride to work for a man who is trying to be better, then that's a price I'm willing to consider. As long as I never forget what happened. As long as I keep my eyes open. She accepted. On her first day at the office, she wore her best blouse and the shoes that hurt a little but looked professional. Leah met her in the lobby. "Welcome, Rosa," she said with a genuine smile. "Let me show you around." Rosa noticed something almost immediately. The cleaning staff didn't look as hollow-eyed as the ones in some other buildings she'd worked in. They still worked hard, of course, but there was less panic in their movements. She met Henry, a maintenance worker who'd been there for 10 years. Pay bump came out of nowhere last week, he told her quietly as they stocked supplies. "We've been asking for years. Guess it took the internet roasting the boss to get it. I'm not complaining, though." Rosa nodded. "I'm sorry you had to wait for that," she said. "You deserve better before any video." He shrugged. "Sometimes change needs a spark," he said. "Doesn't matter where the spark comes from, as long as it lights something real." Later that day, as she was cleaning the glass on a conference room door, Adrian walked by, talking with Liam. He stopped mid-sentence when he saw her. "Rosa," he said, stepping closer, tone respectful. "How's your first day going?" She lowered the cleaning cloth. "So far," she said. "Nobody's asked me if I'm begging." He winced. "I deserve that," he admitted. I know, she said. But to answer your real question, it's going okay. Henry's been showing me around. The pay is what you said. The hours are better than before. We'll see how it goes. You'll tell me if something's not right, he asked. If there's something we can do better. She looked at him for a long moment. You're my employer, not my confessional, she said. But if I see injustice here, yes. I'll speak. Whether you like it or not. He smiled faintly. That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say, he replied. Then he stepped back, giving her space, and resumed his conversation with Liam. As he walked away, Rosa felt something loosen in her chest. She wasn't powerless here. Not anymore. Time passed. The video eventually stopped trending, as all things do. The internet moved on to new outrages, new scandals, new stories. But offline, in offices and homes and small grocery stores, the memory lingered. Inside Wells Development, the policies Adrian had implemented stayed in place. There was resistance, of course. Some board members grumbled about extra costs and unnecessary generosity. Adrian held firm. If we can afford marble in the lobby, he said in one meeting, we can afford to pay the people who mop it a living wage. If that cuts into our bonuses a bit, so be it. Outside, in the city, people still debated whether his changes came from genuine conviction or fear of bad publicity. Rosa listened to those debates sometimes. Read the comments. Heard the opinions. She came to her own conclusion. A person's reasons for changing might be messy. Ego, fear, guilt, empathy, they all mix together. What matters is what they do after. If they keep doing better even when nobody's watching, then maybe the change is real. Sophia grew. She went from drawing cakes on scrap paper to helping decorate actual ones at a part-time job in a local bakery when she was 16. She didn't know the full details of what had happened in that supermarket years ago. Not all of them. Just that one day, life got a little bit easier. Mama got a better job. Birthdays came with real cakes, not biscuits and peanut butter. One afternoon, when she was 17, Sophia came to her mother with a flyer. Look, she said excitedly. There's a scholarship program. For kids of employees at Wells Development. It helps pay for college if you want to study business or design or engineering. I think I want to apply. Rosa's heart squeezed. She recognized the logo on the flyer. She'd seen it on the email system, the hallway posters. Why business? Rosa asked, curious. So I can understand how companies work, Sophia said. And maybe start my own one day. I like the idea of creating something that gives people jobs, like Mr. Wells did. Just, maybe with fewer scandals. Rosa laughed. You do realize that if you get this scholarship, you'll have him partly to thank, she said gently. I guess, Sophia shrugged. But I'll also have you to thank. You took the job. You stuck with it. You made our life better. Rosa smiled, tears stinging her eyes. She said slowly, when you were 8, you said your best birthday was the one with biscuits because we were together. I thought you were just trying to make me feel better. But I think, maybe you were already wiser than both me and Mr. Wells. Sophia smirked. Well, obviously, she said. Teenagers are always right. Rosa rolled her eyes and pulled her into a hug. That year, Adrian watched from the back of a small auditorium as the first recipients of the Wells Development Community Scholarship received their awards. He clapped with everyone else when each name was called. When they announced Sofia Alvarez, pursuing a degree in business administration. Rosa's hands shook as she filmed from her seat, smile so wide it hurt. Sophia walked across the stage, confident and bright, and accepted the certificate. For a second, her eyes met Adrian's across the room. She gave a tiny, respectful nod. He nodded back. No dramatic music. No slow clap. Just two people acknowledging the long, twisted road from a humiliating bakery aisle to this stage. Later, at the small reception with plastic cups of punch and plates of cookies, and yes, small cakes, Sophia approached him. "Thank you," she said simply. "For the scholarship." "You earned it," he replied. "I just signed some papers." "Well, thanks for signing," she said with a grin. "My mom always said adult signatures are like magic wands. They can make things appear or disappear. School trips, jobs, homes. Cakes." He winced a little at the last word, but she said it kindly. "I'm trying to wield my magic wand a bit more carefully these days," he said. "You're doing okay," she replied. "Mom says you're still learning." "She says we all are." "She's right," he said softly. Sophia glanced over at Rosa, who was talking with Leah. "You know," Sophia said, "I still remember one birthday. When there was no cake, just biscuits. Mom tried so hard to make it special. She doesn't know I heard her crying later in the bathroom." Adrian's chest tightened. "She cried?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "Yeah," Sophia nodded. "But the next morning, she was up at 5, going to work again. Like always. That's why I want this degree. So maybe one day, she doesn't have to wake up at 5 unless she wants to bake bread or something." He smiled. "I think she'd like that," he said. "And, for what it's worth, I'm sorry for the part one played in that year's tears." Sophia studied him. "You've said sorry a lot, haven't you?" she asked. "Yes," he admitted. "That's good," she said. "But my mom always says the best apology is changed behavior. So I'm glad you changed your company. That means more than words." He nodded. "It's taken me longer than it should have," he said. "But I'm trying." "Well, then," Sophia said, extending a hand, "good luck trying, Mr. Wells." He shook her hand. "Good luck changing the world, Ms. Alvarez," he replied. "So, what do we do with a story like this? It's not a fairy tale. The world didn't suddenly become fair. There are still people tonight who will go to bed hungry. Still parents counting coins at checkouts. Still kids drawing birthday cakes because they can't eat one. Adrian didn't solve poverty. He wasn't transformed into a perfect person. He still caught himself sometimes slipping into old patterns, judging, dismissing, forgetting. But each time now, he had a memory that stopped him. A woman at a bakery counter, asking for an expired cake. And his own voice, cruel and small, echoing back at him. Rosa didn't suddenly become rich. She still budgeted carefully. She still had days when exhaustion sat heavy in her bones. But she had one job instead of two. She had evenings with her daughter instead of commuting in the dark. She had a chair at school meetings, not just a text message. And she had something else, proof that her dignity didn't depend on the way someone with money talked to her. She'd been humiliated, yes. But she'd also witnessed what happened when the world saw that humiliation and said, "No. This isn't right." Sophia grew up knowing two things at once. That the world could be cruel and unfair. That people could change, if they chose to really see each other. Maybe that's the heart of it. "Do you have an expired cake for my daughter?" It sounds like a small question. But underneath it lives a bigger one. Do you see me? Do you think my child deserves joy, even if I'm poor? When Adrian heard that question the first time, he answered with contempt. The second time, days later, in his office, watching himself on a stranger's phone, he answered with shame. The third time, years later, handing a scholarship certificate to that same daughter, he answered with something closer to humility. So here's where I turn it back to you. If you're still watching, tell me in the comments. Have you ever judged someone at a glance, only to find out later you were completely wrong? Have you ever been in Rosa's position, asking for something you felt you shouldn't have to beg for? And more importantly, what kind of person do you want to be in those bakery moments? The one who sighs loudly and complains about the line? The one who pretends not to hear? The one who takes out their own fear on someone already at rock bottom? Or the one who steps in, quietly, and says, "Hey, I've got this"? Put the cake on my bill. You don't have to be a millionaire to do the right thing. Sometimes the most powerful currency is kindness. Respect. The choice to see someone's humanity before their circumstances. So the next time you're in line somewhere, and you hear a voice trembling at the counter, asking for something that sounds small and desperate, remember Rosa. Remember that expired cake that almost went in the trash. Remember that a single moment, one throwaway comment, one decision to help or to hurt, can echo for years. And if you believe dignity shouldn't depend on the size of someone's wallet, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe for more real-life style stories like this one. And maybe tonight, if you can, share something sweet with someone who doesn't expect it. Not for the internet. Not for applause. Just because somewhere, there's a little kid drawing a birthday cake on scrap paper, hoping this year will be different. And you never know when you might be the one who gets to make that drawing real.